Hello everybody, Ponceninho speaking here. Cabelo tá crescendo, my hair is getting quite long now. I can just see from here, oh my god. Now it's really getting there, né? I've been growing my hair since the beginning of lockdown, and then after a while I thought, you know what, let's keep it going. I want to talk to you guys today about energia. Energy, yes. I'm going to talk about energy. And it was interesting because at the end of a class today, one of my students said, oh, I didn't have a lot of energy today. And there are many ways that we can approach this, okay? We can definitely approach this from a physical side of things. We can talk about so many points. We can talk about nutrition. We can talk about rest. We can approach as an athlete, and we should approach as an athlete. But we should also look things from a capoeira perspective, and that's because when we train, when we practice, sometimes it may not even be a hardcore class, and you still haven't got that feeling, as we want to call axé, right? But it doesn't represent axé really, but we can use that word to understand this. That kind of state of mind that feels blissful, or feels that you are in tune with your body, or whatever. And that's good, but we have to be careful not to feel a little bit spoiled by that. And that's because we are dancers, we are movers, we have music. As we move, the music is playing, we want to enjoy, want to feel sometimes like we are in a horde as well. It is a different feeling. Now, what I want to tell you, some things that might really help you to understand the process of training. There are things that we do in training that, I mean, I defend this, I talk a lot about this. I see other sides to this. I understand that there might be people out there that became incredible capoeiristas just by playing capoeira, and they became so good, and their body is well balanced, you know. So because one thing that happens if you just play capoeira, you have to be careful not to be stronger on one side than another side, because usually you're going to favor movements to the side that you perhaps, if you write with your right hand, maybe use your right side more, whatever it is that you favor more in a game. Of course, when you skive or when you skate, that's a different story, because it depends on the game itself. But we do tend to favor strength movements in one side more in a game. But there might be people out there that can play capoeira only, and we know that. We know about time in history of capoeira where capoeiristas just went and vadiar. That is controversial as well, because I have spoken to so many masters from that generation, okay? Well, let's say we're talking about from Mestre João Pequeno's generation. Perhaps I would say his would be the oldest that I spoke from that generation, you know? That they talk about practicing. They didn't tell me that they only learn by playing capoeira, but we know that exists. We know that people learn just by playing capoeira, which that's not to say that you don't learn by playing capoeira. Of course you do. That's your real lesson, is the roda. But there are things that you are going to practice in class or in practice that is going to help you in a roda, and they're separated from the game. Now, because we're capoeiristas, maybe we don't have time to practice everything. It would be wonderful. Like, it would be wonderful if we have time to practice hand balancing and improve our handstand. Well, we should. I mean, if you have time, amazing, you know. But I find that I have to, yes, I practice a lot of things, but I have to have an umbrella. I have to have a little more narrow view into practice. Narrow view into practice does not mean narrow-minded. That does not mean that you're not going to try things or have different perspective and experience different things, or change approach when you feel you need something else. Absolutely. But nevertheless, you need the incubation time. Now, there's a phrase that I use a lot from Paulo Coelho, which is forno aberto não assa pão, open oven bakes no bread. So that's a good metaphor for me, because there are times you just need to close the oven and bake the bread. And that means it's a focus energy, focus intensity, uninterrupted heat in the body, in the movement. Yeah. So going into that area of training, now we're talking about training. I've just made a case for how it's important to practice. There might be better practice than others, but how is good and important to practice. Throughout the history of capoeira, at least, let's say from 100 years to now, we know that capoeiristas have developed forms of training and teaching and methods. I know that word can be complicated, but method or system, whatever it is, a form of teaching something. Now, in that, we are used to combine with elements of the art itself, the music. So sometimes we want to feel something in the training that can get in the way. It can get in the way because then you start to judge yourself from not being able to feel a certain way. Okay? So I'm not sure if you all relate to this. Please let me know if you do relate to what I'm saying and what I'm going to say more. Please write a comment. Help me to share this message. This channel for me so we can create, really expand the message out there for capoeiristas that might need this kind of help sometimes, might need this kind of conversation sometimes. So it's actually what I want to say that is very simple. Sometimes your energy and your share is just taking a little time, just taking a little nap in a class for you to come back stronger in a roda. What do I mean by this? Is the days that you don't feel so much in tune, don't overthink about that. Don't let reflect on how you are actually as a capoeirista in a roda, because that can be a mistake. In fact, may I say that we should actually, I mean, training is wonderful. You start to train, you move, it's a wonderful feeling. Of course, we love training, but we can have more days in training where it's perhaps a little bit more blunt, you know. I mean, I don't think kids enjoy training, but it doesn't have to be a performance every time you train. Now, I am guilty of that because I teach and I've taken a teaching style that tries to, I wouldn't say entertain, but I would say that I do bring whenever I can. If the content is good, I try to bring some things to, we say, descontrair. But let me make an important point about this that maybe you never thought about. This is actually a conscious effort of mine to improve my teaching style so I can do the classes, reach you, but also have something about laughing and enjoying the training because I think it reflects in your game. I can't just be teaching seriously and everybody's serious the whole time. That does not mean you don't focus or don't train serious or moments of intensity. That is not that. But it just means that there is a way to do this. And it shouldn't just be banter the whole time. But there is a way to do this where we can learn to not take everything serious all the time as we practice. Even how interesting that it can be intense, very intense, but we know that the purpose of that is something else that's going to help us in the roda later. Okay? Obviously very complex, but to keep it simple, when you have a bad day, you can change the approach, but do not judge how you feel that day. You are not as good as your last class. You're not as good as your last game. People think like that about capoeiristas, and it can be a mistake. You can have a very bad game, and then the week after, you have a wonderful, blissful game. In sports psychology, they talk about this, and they talk about how this can affect the performance of an athlete so much. And this, you can see this in football, where they do a pass. If they do a wrong pass, and they don't have the psychology, they haven't learn these things, it can affect the entire game just because they did one wrong move and they get stuck into that movement. I hope this really helps you because I know what it's like to either have a bad game or let alone get a rasteiro or something in the game where it affects the rest of your roda, it affects the rest of your game or affect the rest of your week sometimes, you know, and that can go into training as well. You can do a movement, you can do a bad movement sometimes, and then you start to judge too much. We have a lot to look forward to. Take time, enjoy at each class how they are, and then let's also learn. Perhaps I'll finish on this now. Because this is an ongoing conversation, okay? That's why I want to hear your comments on this. But we can also learn how to really fight for things, but learn how to accept. These are the two things that we need to do. So let me finish by saying that some of the most important points that I can remember in my development, I'm not talking about games, I'm talking about development. Some of the most important moments of my development were from those two sides. This struggle, this fighting not to lose things, to keep the plates spinning, spinning plates, and keeping this, keeping that one, but also accepting throughout time things that are changing, the way things are changing. And that's a hard line. It's a difficult line, of course, a thin line. Well, it's a line. it's a line that we need to learn to navigate and to cross. And it's about good information. It's about instruction. It's about trial and error. All of the things are at play. So I have learned how to accept something. Okay, I accept that today I'm feeling like this. And then we go to work on that. It is when you're fighting back that we say in Brazil, punching pointed knife. It doesn't translate very beautifully, but there's a phrase in Brazil, murro em ponta de faca, which means there's no point of punching a pointed knife. Obviously, you're just going to hurt yourself. So it's about understanding that the cliche of this is a journey, it is so true. So how much information as we gather so we can navigate better, that is important, okay? Next time you have a class where you feel your energy was low, it could be so many things. It could be emotions, of course. It could be you haven't trained for a while. It could be that you haven't been sleeping well. It could be all of these things. If you want to change your capoeira, you have to change yourself. Okay, this might be like a harsh statement. What do you mean change myself? I don't mean change yourself like that. I mean that, yes, you change the attitude towards that. Like I told in another video before, that I was feeling, a while ago, I was feeling very weak. My movements were not happening. And two things that I thought that changed complete, guys, that change was so big, this has to be something there. I first thought, okay, snap out of that, stop feeling like this, change the way you approach the movements, change the energy that you're putting in the movement. How do you want to be doing this movement in that feeling of, I can't, oh, what's happening? Oh, how? Okay, and if you're still not working, that's fine. You've changed the energy. The energy now is better. You're attacking the movement more. You're going for the movement more. So then it's your physique. Well, I was eating a lot of sugar. So I thought, okay, this is to do with my muscles. I need to train my muscles. Because then you get all of the luggage out of the way and you can focus in what really needs to be focused. You stop lying to yourself. Okay, it's not the energy then, so it was the physical energy. So I need to train the approach. And I thought, what do I need? And I had this big bing. Oh, I need a little bit more power. That's what I needed, which is why I've been teaching my students a lot lately about power. Movements that, let's do this, and jumps and things like that. Because it really shakes everything. Sometimes the capoeiristas are too much like this, and I say, okay, a little bit of power training will change your perspective in how you move, will change your perspective in everything. And if you, for whatever reason, you cannot do power training, we take another approach. We look at something else that will help you to change. It's just wonderful that we have so much to understand, so much knowledge to search for, and this is what we should look forward to, okay? Abraço. Please help me to share this if you enjoy. Please subscribe to the channel. Help me I want to increase this channel a little bit more so we can do more videos like this and get into other subjects. And final, hashtag your comment, because it helped me to find your comment. Leave me if you want to find out more, if you didn't understand what I said, or if you're like, okay, that's interesting, but can you then go deeper into this, give me more examples? I'll be happy to do that. But I got to stop now. It's 14 minutes, and more than that, it's going to be a bit boring, okay? I have a phrase that says, advice should be like the snow. The more gentle it falls, the longer it stays. Abraço. Have a good day, guys. Ciao, ciao.